Yep, I think we're live.
Yeah.
So let us start.
Okay.
Hi, Edison.
Oh no.
Thanks for joining me on this video. I've been making a series of videos for the past 5 years or something,
Mm-hmm.
um, rather spontaneously.
It's good. It's good.
And
It's all good.
my goal has just been, it has been a journey of self-realization
Mm-hmm.
and just trying to understand um, why we are here and who we are,
Mm-hmm.
and all those spiritual questions,
Yes.
that
Yes.
not everybody is interested in asking, which I appreciate because I've been on the other side too, where most of the questions that we ask are about about survival, basically,
Mm.
surviving in the physical world. How do we get a job? How do we, fulfill all those things? But now I find myself on this side. I know from my own experience, that life is like a duality.
Of course.
Um, there's no day without night. There's no whatever, that's just how life is. There are always two sides to something. And yeah, that's why I'm here. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel this is the side where I should be because I feel at peace. I feel very calm, on this side of the equation. And I feel this is where my highest potentials can be achieved. So yeah, I want you to just introduce yourself, in a
Okay.
few sentences, so
As
the
quick as
audience
I
can know who
can.
you are and why you're here.
Okay, as quick as I can for me. My name, as you can see, Edison Agbandje. I have been running a company called Ancestral Essence for about 5, 6 years. We specialize in trying to reintroduce the idea of African spirituality back into the main concern. For many years, it sort of languished at the side, and there's a lot of spookism, which is not natural or not necessary attached to the understanding of the ancient Africans. So I've been trying through my 20 odd years of speaking to my ancestors to 6 or 7 years of running courses to explain or just have people see from a older, more deeper perspective what everyone back then was trying to explain before it was taken over by various different beliefs trying to protect themselves. The ancients had an understanding of life, and it's really the African sciences and their explanation of life that is what is being called their traditions or religions. So my job is to try and bring that back to the world, and we've been working a long time to do that. We have a website called Ancestral Essence where we sell oils, and we have some sort of different posts trying to explain things. And we also promote our courses from that place where we're trying to just get people on board to get back into their real game of themselves. So, in a nutshell, as quick as
Yeah.
I can do it. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So the topic for today is African spirituality,
Mhm.
and that's a very broad topic. But what we're discussing is an introduction, just to understand what it is, how it works, and all that. So, what exactly is African spirituality? Before you go in,
Go ahead.
I I just want to say, from observation, because I've been doing some spiritual, work and research too,
Hmm.
and it's how will I put it? Is the major traditions that's out there currently is the Eastern tradition, that has to do with Buddhism and the other and Hinduism and those religions there, those spiritual ancestry or lineage, and there has been a little, how would I put it? African spirituality is just about surfacing or resurfacing. Let me put it
Okay.
like that. Yeah, and there's a lot of interest. in understanding
Mm.
the spirituality of the Black people, because of our unique place,
Mm.
in the history of human nature.
Of course.
It's well established that that human life started in Africa,
Of course.
um, before the migration to other parts of the world. So it will be it's very interesting to me to understand how we are reconstructing, and trying to bring out the spirituality that we had
Mm.
um, then and we still have now, um, back to the limelight. So, what is African spirituality? According to what you're doing.
Thank you, because I'm glad you gave that caveat at the end, according to what I'm doing. African spirituality, as you said, there's so many different countries in Africa, each one practicing their own form of traditional connection to their environment, to their ancestors, to their belief systems and creation stories. So there is so much that when we embarked on this topic and when we embarked on this journey, we realized that we couldn't focus on any one. My main focus, to be fair, the one that I studied the most was the West African tradition, Ifa. And that was because there was more information more readily available on that subject. But in the end, I had to go back to my own ancestors. And like I said, I've been talking to my ancestors for 20 years. So they came down and explained to me that essentially who you are, how you think, the consciousness, the one who is looking out at the world. That is what your spirit is. And you have to understand how that works. Before any religion, belief systems, idea of anything, you was first a consciousness, and then you were born into this world where you then became about the different stories and traditions. So they've sort of taken me back on the other side of the screen, on the screen of life before you came to this world, where there was no color, where there was no belief system, where there was no tradition. It was just the essence of who you are operating within a body to enable you to have a human experience. What do we say? You're the being, not the human. Yeah, so we've forgotten that we're the being, we've forgotten that we're the essence. And for me, that's where our spirituality or how our spirit operates in this reality, that's where we focus so that we can turn in the other direction and move deeper within, but not in the sort of airy fairy title that is used as an excuse to genuinely go into your ancestors, to genuinely sit at your ancestral councils, and to have dialogues with your people that have passed, the people that are present, and you start to find out what the essence of what you can really do as a being, as opposed to just believing that you're the human, and then the human, now the story has been lost in belief systems, and you're this, you're that color, you're this thing, you're that thing. So the human story has been, how do you say, contaminated. But the essence of who you are, that's still pure, that's still real, and that's where we focus. So we speak more to that than we do anything about what do you believe, what day do you believe, how many days, what day is a good day to pray, what day is not a good day to pray, how many times you pray. That doesn't have any relevance or hold with the thing that we're doing. It's just that what is the essence of you and what is the character of that essence. That is a very important thing with us as well, because with that you're going to generate a positive magnetic field that's going to bring to you the things that you're looking for. So as far as African spirituality is concerned, the term is a misnomer because it's how do you say, you can't actually put all of it into one ball. So go back to the actual original principles of what they were trying to convey and what people have now turned into different stories and created all different paradigms and doctrines. Go back to the essence, the nub of who you are. And that's what we refer to as your spirit in this reality.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for the
As
intro.
brief as one can. Go ahead.
Yeah. From your explanation,
Mm.
it's just the same thing I've understood too from the research I've been doing. So it's um, it's obvious to me now that spirituality is basically the same thing everywhere.
Same thing.
But yeah, it's just that different people have practiced it in different ways. Uh,
Based on their environment and their belief systems and whatever creation story they've been given, they're still
yeah,
connecting with a spirit. It's just that it's on the inside, not on the outside.
yes, yeah. As with every idea, every how do I put everything that comes out in the world, it gets diluted with time. Um, Sometimes the real message gets lost, as time goes by. And when there are people that are not willing or ready to do the work that's needed, they are always going to be people that will be looking for a shortcut or an easier explanation, so they don't have to so that they can how would I put it they can transfer their responsibilities to somebody else or
They
something
need
else
someone to
and not
blame,
be
my friend.
responsible for themselves.
Yeah,
And it happens everywhere, with everything. So going back to what you were saying,
go ahead.
about the spirit being the essence
Mm,
of who we are. So the personal question I have, is
go
uh,
ahead.
how would you like? Who are we? Who is that spirit? Um, does that spirit have a purpose
Of course,
in the physical body?
of course.
So why is it like? Why are we here and everything? That's
Well, let's go back a bit so that we understand when we come forward. You have to imagine that you didn't travel all this way without a purpose. You didn't go through the process of actually taking on a body. Because remember, we say that the woman is the gateway between two worlds. So in Ifa and all these older traditions, they speak of how in the spirit world, everyone's looking for the appropriate womb that can hold their consciousness, that can hold their story, that can hold their potential for the life that they want to live. So before you've come here, you have planned everything in advance. You have seen the story that you're going to go into. But you know at the end of the day that as a consciousness, as a being, you are immortal. The only thing that can pass or die is your physical body, but you, the actual essence, can never be destroyed. You, as they say, energy can't be destroyed. You, the essence, can't be destroyed. But all that can be destroyed is your physical body. When you see someone pass, the first thing you start to realize is the body returns back to the earth, which it has been eating all its life to create its body. People grow fat and grow slimmer based on what type of earth they eat. So we are really just the earth, our physical body. And that's all that we've ever, well, that's what we're going to return back to. But essentially, the essence of you came here with a purpose to live in a story. It came with the intentions of who the people that it's going to meet, who it's going to live with, the relationships, all of this is planned in advance. We say that your life is your journey and the people that you're going to meet are your destination. So all of this has been planned in advance. We're literally coming to pay debts of previous times that we've come here, misdemeanors that we've done. We're looking for the appropriate people so that we can actually square it with them, so that we've done what they needed us to do, and then we can move on from our life from that. That's why people are with you for a season or for a day and can have equal impact. That's why as you get older, you find that Certain people you knew from when you were young, and certain stories you were in, they were like lifetimes ago. There's certain people at school, I just can't remember their face. Colleges, I can barely remember different people from there. But at that time, it was so important because I was in my version of the now then, and all I could do was focus on what I was doing and where I was going. But you will move on to different stories, to different people, to different situations because you have come here to meet them. All this story about alignment is the alignment of people coming together at the right time to complete the task that they agreed to follow in a previous life, in a previous situation before they got here. So if we go back, if you understand what you're gonna do, you're just gonna bump in to people. You'll be in the job for the people that you're going to meet, not for the money that you're gonna make. You're gonna be in certain groups again because it was agreed that you had to be at a certain place to meet a certain person to go on to do what you had to do. One thing we're not here to do is to fix this world story. This world was here before we got here. This dimension will be here after we've gone. It's a place where our consciousness comes in order to play out the story in this avatar of who we are or who we think we are meant to be. Most people get stuck in trying to fix their story. They don't actually do anything for their lives. When you ask them who are they tell you what they do, not who they are or what they understand of themselves because they're not connected to that. They've fallen into a pigeonhole of an idea, and now their whole life is just how do I fix this story that everyone has given me labels? I'm black, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. And now they're trying to fulfill those labels as opposed to the original path and mission that their consciousness came here to do. So we're effectively trying to rewind it all the way back to now that you're the consciousness. Where does your consciousness come from? Why did your soul send your consciousness to a body to play out a story so that it can repair damage that you've done in previous lives? That's how we understand it. And we take you back all the way to there, your soul self, that library of all the different lifetimes you've had, before you move further back to the spark, that original intelligence of who you are before it embarked in this whole human being, animal, different reality that we've been playing out. So your purpose has always been to pay the debts or to have debts paid to you from previous interactions in different lives. This is why they speak of this place as the marketplace, because this is where your consciousness comes and does its interactions and transactions in this avatar, what we call the human form. Okay.
Amazing. So in essence, we're here to reconcile.
Please. So
This,
we're here to do what, sorry?
to reconcile some differences that
100%.
that
That's
we
it.
have,
That's
right?
why. That's why whenever you finish one problem, another one arrives, and another one arrives, because your consciousness or your soul per se has a plan, schedule. Imagine if you think of someone in that day and in the morning, and then you wake up and you go out and see them. What kind of shenanigans had to go behind the scenes to make that event took place? How much timing, and you had to be at a certain moment at a certain place to look up and see that person. There's another part of you that has its own schedule, that has its own plan, and we're more often the observer who's just complaining about how we feel about everything. But from when your soul knows that you cannot die, only your body. And as they say, when people start talking about you, that's when you truly died. Up until that part, you live in the hearts and the energies and the minds of everyone. So we never truly die until no one remembers us.
All right. I don't want us to go down that
No worries, my friend. Anywhere
that
you want to
pathway.
go.
Yeah, because I know there are lots of we are probably going to be doing this in series because I know that there are lots of how will I put it, paths, that we can take to this, but I just want to follow the simple one for now for
Go
today.
ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So we're here to reconcile that because
Mm.
if I start asking some more questions down that path, I'll be asking things like, it feels to
Ask
me,
it. Why you be asking it? Go
yeah,
ahead.
because it feels to me like um, like I have created some havoc too in this
You
life,
have.
as I believe.
You have to.
Before I started realizing, yeah, I had already caused some havoc too. So like I would have been asking, where does it end? Is there an end to the
Well, you see,
reconciliation
we
and the
only
fixing,
want it.
or do we just
We
keep on
want to
moving?
end. We keep on moving forward. We want to end because our body's in pain. And our body's in pain because, like what you said at the very beginning, we're operating from a concept of right and wrong. And the thing is, be that our body is made up of emotions. We're constantly generating emotions and feelings. Every day we live from emotion to emotion. And the part of our mind that is making these judgments are constantly in battle, in conversation. So when something happens to us, based on our rules, we're going to determine whether it's good or bad. And based on our judgment in our mind, we're going to create the corresponding emotion. And once we create that emotion, it's going to be the judgment, and our body's going to feel that emotion we've just judged ourselves to go through. So if you decide that this situation is painful, even though the next person to you is elated and happy, their body is not going to generate the same pain that your body's going to generate for you to experience. So, based on your belief systems, how many rules that you have, how many ideas you have of right, of wrong, a person who's very judgmental, I can guarantee you they're in a lot of pain all the time because they're generating it for themselves to experience. They will blame everyone else for transgressing against their rules, but they're the ones that are going to create the chemical emotions that is going to put them in pain.
All right. Let's get back to your specialty. You said
Okay.
you studied the Ifa tradition.
Okay.
That's Yoruba spiritual
Yes, it
tradition,
is.
right?
Not if that
Yeah.
I'm from the Yoruba tribe, but I do have some Yoruba ancestors. But again, what you'll find is that your ancestors will guide you to the stories that they want you to participate in, that they want you to know. Because again, I was initially taken to the Bible, the Quran, Sufism, Western magic, Native American magic, all of them, all these different disciplines, because all of them had a theme of a connection to an actual intelligence that resided within ourselves. So when I got to the West African tradition, Ifa, I then found somewhere where I could start to get in behind the scenes. Because if you study Ifa, the thing that they tell you when you read their older books is how everything came to this world and how the sun came, how darkness came, how the trees came, how water came, how different emotions came. So each of these things are explained in details, how these things came, what they did here, to help you understand that this dimension is a creation of very intelligent beings that literally had their specific job to do, and therefore created something based on that task they were given. And it explains how all of these things came into being. So my ancestors put me into that information so that I could have a deeper understanding of how human beings came into existence and how human beings' bodies work. And you realize that every organ in your body has its own separate intelligence, has its own separate purpose, and has its own separate language and energy reservoirs. And then it's amazing by the time, and every metal, nothing is in your body and system without a purpose and without a reason. That's why people can be deficient in metals and things like that, because their body once upon a time had these things as standard. So you start to realize that even your body, everything came here for a reason. Your consciousness came for a reason and has a purpose. So the African stuff that we try and focus on is really incorporating all of you and all of the understandings, not the belief systems. We leave that for those that have time to debate that, but actual you connecting with your heart, calling your heart by its real name, because all of us can't have the same name for heart. Your heart must have its own unique name and its own unique frequency for the job that it actually does. And if you ask and listen, you can hear a sound, which would be the sound of your heart giving you its real name, so that you can then have a relationship with all the organs, with all the different aspects of yourself. There is so much that these guys covered in their traditions and their understandings that after a while you realize they were focused on the original you. Before there was any belief systems, they just gave names of different deities, or not even deities, archetypes, intelligences, because they were trying to find a way to explain the intelligences within you in a format and storyline or allegories that human beings can understand. So it's always just been about you, how your consciousness operates within the community that is your body, and how you can learn to speak to them to find the deeper wisdoms of what this reality is all about.
Yeah. You've spoken about the deeper intelligence in us. You've spoken about the spirits in us. You've spoken about ancestors.
Mm.
Now, what spirit, if there's only one, is
Good.
operating in us? Um, are we the same as the ancestors, or are they separate beings?
Okay, that's a good one. The truth is, you are a returned ancestor. So they say that children, grandparents come back to teach their parents.
Hope you understand my question.
Yeah, no,
I
100%.
was speaking
No,
like
I
that.
understand
Okay,
100%.
all right.
I'll explain, because my speciality or what I focus on is understanding what the ancestors are. So effectively, they say that all of us return back in order to teach our own parents how to be good parents. It's your child that teaches the parent how to be a parent. The parent doesn't know. But in having to look after and love someone else, they have to dig out something within themselves in order to be able to see how they're going to relate to this child. So every child is an ancestor returned. It's an old soul in a baby body learning how to occupy this itself, or to learn how to navigate through this life. This is most people don't catch themselves, boys or girls, because your consciousness realizing that you're in a physical body you don't understand. That's why when you get to 13 or 14, all of a sudden you say, well, I know how to use this body now, so I know how to do what I need to do. As regard to ancestors, they used to call ancestors, the word for ancestors used to be egun, which used to use just mean bones. So in your bones are the makeup, the DNA of all the ancestors that came before you. When you look in the mirror, the face that you have is one that has been passed down from generations to generations. Your smile is the same as your child, or your child's smile is the same as yours, no matter how you want to play, because the muscles that made their face is the same as yours. And when they think smile, they will just think, and the muscles will create the smile that they're looking at. So, and this is the thing, None of us have a day we don't speak to our ancestors. Whenever we're communicating within ourselves, we have to have a conversation before we can decide what it is that we're actually going to say. When someone is in deep contemplation, they're often in deep conversation with another intelligence within themselves, which some people would say is their higher self. There is a point where you can get to that place, but we define and show you which ancestors you're speaking to, which are the ones that agreed to continue that relationship of looking after you whilst you're alive. You normally have two, one from each side, but they will be there with you in your mind. So we say that you're only intelligent as good, your intelligence is based on the voices that you ask within your mind. Because you will ask them for information. You'll say that, hold on, what am I going to do next? And you'll wait for some voice in your head to give you an answer. That is the ancestor. And once you can communicate with that ancestor independently of all the other voices going in your mind, you enjoy a state of peace. You enjoy a state of silence in your mind where your connection is pure and clear, and you're no longer in that state where all those other energies residing within you that are giving you those negative statements, they disappear. All that's left is you, your ancestors, the voice that has always been giving you advice, that now becomes your guide and gets you through. So, one of our main things is to get you in contact with that ancestor, with that voice inside you, so you can shut down the unnecessary and nonsense, emotions, all different things. And then they can start to teach you how to be a better consciousness within your human self.
Hmm. Okay. So is
I did
there
ask. Go on.
that's you know, I was holding my breath. I just had
No
to bring it
problem, my
out.
friend. It is a
So,
thing. So,
you've spoken about voices.
yes.
Is there a particular way? Is there a particular way of living or being um, that will enable us to hear that voice clearer, or is it,
Oh,
or
yes,
can
yes.
anybody in any sphere of life just do it, or how does it work?
Anybody, anybody. The reason why I do courses is really to teach people how to do that.
You
And we
know,
do
some
it
people
very
live very
early.
busy lives somehow.
Sorry?
Now, since
Yeah.
some people like are really like they live very busy, busy in the sense of being in the matrix in the world.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. So yeah. So how does it play out? How can we
E-
hear?
no, even in the busiest person in the busiest time, they're still asking questions inside them. Because we have a saying that you don't think, you ask a question inside your mind and you wait for another voice to give you an answer. When you're confused, is that you're not sure what the voice is saying inside you. So you don't actually have an idea how to conduct yourself. So there is a way, and this is why we say when we show you how to connect to your ancestor, the voices stop. You don't hear anything anymore. Yeah, all of a sudden now you're in a situation where all you're constantly doing is now walking in peace, hearing what you need to hear, doing what you need to do, and no longer being in that situation where you're a slave to all these different emotional requests that you're getting in your head. You see, they say every conversation is a guided meditation. So when someone's talking to you, what they're actually doing is asking you to picture what they see in their mind. So straight away, you shut down your own image and now you're focusing on what that person is saying. So your thoughts, your feelings, what you're going through has been shut down. And now you're trying to rationalize who you are based on what this person is saying. So without a firm sense of who you are with your ancestors, you now can take on information coming into you and appreciate it's from someone else's mind, from someone else's internal conversation. And this is where they are, and this is where you can be and stay in confidence within yourself. So again, this voices, all these different things. I could go into it, but we'd be here for hours. Explain the different energies, entities, education, belief systems. All of these things have an energy sitting behind them, literally acting as a voice. So whenever you speak to these ideas, they give you an answer back. And they say, how do you say, a spoonful of fear helps the education go down. So if I can scare you and make you feel that your life is in danger or in trouble, if you don't follow what I say, you're going to add a fear to what I say, an emotional reaction. And as such, that emotional reaction will scare you into being obedient into what I'm saying. So this is where your ancestors help you and essentially create a situation. So when someone is talking, you know that they're talking in their own understanding of themselves. So you do not need to be emotionally attached. You can differentiate yourself, keep yourself apart, and no longer be dancing to someone else's confused tune.
Yeah, this last part you just mentioned, something I've observed over a few years now. Um, Most of the marketing, not just in spirituality, just in the world that we live in, most marketing is based on fear.
Of course.
Fear based. They will tell you, what's your what you are losing basically, if you're not in line with whatever they're selling.
Mm,
And that's how the approach has always been to selling. To make the person fear losing out on what it is. So fear has been used a lot in our
mm.
lives. Fear of failing, fear of going to hell, fear of there
Exactly.
are just so many fears that we're putting out.
They have to create the destination, hell. Yeah, we have a saying that always makes us laugh where we say, how can you burn in hell when you don't take your body with you?
Oh yeah, so
And
yeah,
how can you eat milk and honey when you got no mouth to use? Once you understand and speak to the other side, they'll explain that you do take on an avatar, and this is why your spirit can't interface with your body, and it needs your mind to act as an operating system so that that energy can be converted into a system that your mind can use, so that when you go to other lives and you take on other avatars, that consciousness then does exactly the same thing, uses the mind of the body to communicate with the body, because the consciousness can't directly interface with your body here. It can just speak to different departments and do its communications through that. But as we were saying with the fear thing, that's a serious thing, because the one thing we need you to stop being is fearful. And the thing that we need most of all is for you to be confident of your thoughts, because all we can ever sell you is yourself. And the only thing we can ever ask you to be is more confident about your own thoughts, feelings. Like you keep saying, Uchenna, the person that really doesn't have any fear in themselves doesn't have to have fear about anyone else. And all these things they're going through is really just based on how fearful they are that there's a negative outcome, when the negative outcome is often created by themselves based on what they've created, based on what they believe might happen.
yeah, yeah. Of course, um, most of our predictions, projections of our mind,
Exactly.
based on maybe past experiences or whatever. So the human being is already wired towards negativity. Um,
Oh, that's a big one. I think
yeah,
we've been brought
we
up to
have
be
a
negative.
negativity
I
bias,
think we've been brought
and
up. A baby
yeah,
is born. You see, your babies are born smiling, aren't they?
Yeah, they
and
are. They
and
are.
they
You know, I have a little
cater.
baby. She's 17 months old, and I've realized, because I was conscious when I gave birth to her. Um, my own style of parenting is different. Not different, but where I feel it's different from what how we were raised and how other
Mm.
and from things I've observed. And this is the age where she is now, where she's exploring everything, running around, jumping around, and I know that my responsibility, like I mentioned, the duality, I
Mhm.
have to make a choice. Am I going to go the line of disciplining by putting fear into her,
Thank you.
or do I just protect her and let her know that she's protected, even if she's doing what to us it seems like reckless, but to her she's just playing. Yeah,
Look,
and she's playing with the instruments that we as human beings have created. We did not design the home for children; it's meant for adults. So even the seats, the tables, and everything is for the adults. So it's not made for her, and I
what,
know that. So I just try to keep her, safe with whatever she's doing because she's trying to explore. The other way I can go is by screaming and putting fear into her, so that then and yeah.
no,
So
no, no, but this is what you say. This is when the child is broken. Because when
this
they
is where the
hit
child is
two,
broken. Yeah,
all they hear is being told off for everything. Stop doing this, stop doing that, stop doing this, stop doing that. And eventually the child just stops. And the child now is looking at your face, looking for you to say what is okay for the child to do so that the child can see you smile, so that the child can maintain their happiness. So everyone wants to say, stop doing that. The child will grow up this way, grow up that way. And by the time the child is 4 or 5, the child is scared. It's just looking around to say, oh God, what can I do? What can I do without getting in trouble? Because all of a sudden, the terrible twos, the troubled fives, it's
it's
literally a
terrible.
case where, yeah, terrible twos, troubled five. And it's literally at that point, everyone's looking to break the child, to make the child easier
To
for
make them
them to
obedient.
manage. And this is where it is. Before you know, the child by 7 is not that smiling child anymore. And the child's got problems. What's the child's problem? Everyone's got a problem with a child. Unless the child is obedient and a good child, the child is a bad child. So that child now is operating from a sense of fear and a sense of looking for love from everyone around them, which has been removed unless the child does what the child is told.
Oh yeah, it's not an easy
No,
path that I'm choosing. But I'll just take the challenge and see how it goes.
stick with it. It's your child. Don't
Yeah,
look, don't let
yeah.
someone grow your child and then later on blame you for what happens. So you
Oh
shouldn't have
no,
listened to me.
no, no,
That's what they'll turn
yeah,
around and
no.
say.
Oh yeah. So
Mm,
let's get back. Okay, well, we're almost
sure.
done. Let's get back to the core. What we're speaking. Yeah, you've spoken about how well you've not really gone into detail of anything,
Go
but
ahead.
you've explained that we can actually communicate with our ancestors, and
Mm.
said that they live in our bones. Basically,
That's where they
they
live in
are
our
us.
bones. They're
They
part of our
are they are
DNA.
our face and
Thank you.
everything. So we are
Mm,
them and they are us.
mm.
But we still need to communicate. There was something you mentioned
Go ahead.
about images,
Yes,
or us trying to capture images in conversation.
that's right.
Um, and there's this thing I've been dealing with, not
Mm,
not really dealing with, but it has crossed my consciousness that
mm.
most of my thoughts are in words. I have
Okay.
I don't I how will I put it? I do not think in images somehow.
You don't think in images.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's difficult for me to see.
Let
Well,
go on, because I was
unless my eyes are open,
okay.
yeah, I can. But if I close my eyes, I don't. I can't. I don't see images
You
like
don't
that.
see in images.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I dream, and it's hard for me to recall a dream unless it's a dream that's that had an impact somehow.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me try and explain, or let me explain as I understand and what I was told. They say we don't listen. When someone is saying something to you, you're building, you're taking their words, and with each word, you're building a mini movie inside your mind. Until you have that mini movie built inside your mind, you can't have an internal dialogue about what it is that you've just built. What's that mini movie you've just created? Once you have that mini movie created in your mind, then you have your internal discussion with your ancestors or your belief systems. That is when then you decipher, come to the conclusion, and then create the emotion. So all we're ever doing is building an image. Now, the problem you may have if you're trying to convince someone of something is that they already have a firm image in their mind of a subject, of an idea, like a belief system. So when you're speaking to them, they don't have any room or not prepared to challenge the existing image that they have in their mind. So they reject what you're saying without you actually, no matter how eloquently you put it, they have a fixed image of their mind of what they're choosing to believe. And well, they're not taking on your words or processing your words to alter the image that they have in their head. So when someone says that you're hard at listening, you're better off asking them, what is it that you believe? So that then you can see the image that they have and then ask them to pick their image apart. Once they pick their image apart and they see that it's more based on emotions than any facts, then you have more chance of them dropping that image and allowing your image that you're trying to introduce to take any shape or form in their mind. Now, the concept of dreaming is we don't dream. The body is what needs to sleep. Your consciousness travels onto other dimensions and then has different experiences in these dimensions. Have you ever noticed that you've never died in your dream? Or that
No,
you don't
I've never died, but I've been
exactly.
dreaming.
And
Well,
even when you've died in your dream, you actually see them carrying the coffin. It's like, huh? You see them dealing with the
yeah,
funeral
I've
in
been
your
buried in
dream.
I've been buried in my body. I was awake inside the, like, how would I put it? I
Mm.
wasn't dead, of course. I was awake inside the,
Exactly. That's what I'm
yeah.
saying. Because you, as a consciousness, cannot die, even in your dreams. The thing is, sometimes, and the thing is, you can never see your body in your dream as well. You can't see your hands. You can't see your legs. You can't see anything. It's like you're just looking at a picture. It's like you're just looking at an image. You can't see anything. So it's when you're there in a dream, it's like you've turned up in a picture, you can see everyone around moving it. And this is because your consciousness has gone into another dimension where it's playing out another version of you that operates in that dimension, another storyline. So therefore, again, the reason why you can't remember things is sometimes the actual language that you needed to see. Because the funny thing about dreams is that it helps you understand that everything else is taking place inside us. Can you imagine that you can see colors in your dream? You can hear sounds in your dream. You can feel things in your dream. But essentially, your body is asleep where there's no sounds, there's no colors, and you're not seeing anything. So do the colors exist inside you or outside of you? Is it you, the one who's generating the images inside you? And are you only living the image that you're seeing in your mind? Because that's what we're really living. We're living the image that we've created in our mind, and that's what we perceive is our lives. And when we're in dreams, we're just looking at the images we've created in those dimensions, which we're then again perceiving as our dream, just because we've got a firm connection to this story. So this story is real, and all those other stories aren't. We do explain what this story is and why you think it's real, but it's no realer than any other dream that you're having.
Okay, I'll ask you two more questions
Go ahead, my friend.
before we round up. Okay. Um, this one is how do I put it? Okay, the personal question. How did you come about? How did you start this journey?
Okay.
What made you choose this path?
I'll be honest with you, people like myself, I guess like yourself, you were born with a reason to know why. You couldn't help it. It was the only thing that really held my curiosity when I was young. How did this happen? Why did this work? The deeper questions were the only thing that I had interest in. Being that I'm from an African background or Nigerian background, I witnessed a few things when I was younger that didn't make sense. That didn't make sense with my Western education. And I heard stories and I saw things. So I became curious as into what did my ancestors really do? And in honesty, how do you protect yourself from within yourself? How do we actually get to that point where our thoughts and our minds can't be hijacked by another energy? And how can you protect yourself from various people wishing you bad luck, all this kind of stuff? So I had to come through a series of many battles like that, where it was out of necessity. I had to learn to defend myself. A lot of things people suffer with. A classic one is sleep paralysis, that when you're actually sleeping, you're down in the bed and all of a sudden you feel like you're being attacked, but you can't physically move. You want to get up and fight with this energy there, but you're not actually in your body at that moment. You're still hovering. You haven't taken control back of that body. And when you're in that situation, many a terrible thing happens at that point. All these situations I had to face and deal with and understand how to come past it. There's a point where this no longer becomes about some sort of game or some idea. People are going through real terrible things and they just don't know how to get out of there. They've gone to all the various spiritual places or religious places trying to get rid of these things. Unless you understand this dimension and other dimensions, you won't be able to shift those things off you. So there's a point where it's very nice, it's all very jolly, it's all very this, but people are going through real things. So be that I was forced to go through that, I had no choice. I had to learn, had to study all these different traditions first before my ancestors came and then explained to me, because there's a thing that we teach how to communicate with them. Very simple, takes sort of 10 minutes to learn or what have you. And then my ancestors just said, "You can hear me, you can hear us." And I said, "Yes." So from that point, I was in direct connection with them. And then they were just literally taking me from school to school to school to school until they could realize that I could listen to them directly and they can teach me directly. So the classes that we have are based on information that I've gathered over the years, but also from direct contact, which we teach everyone to have. It's not that you're gifted, it's not based on your color. It's really just based on how open minded you are to trust yourself. It's really about trusting yourself and not trusting the external world. So, yeah, from that point onwards, and 20, 30 years later, we've been doing this. And now we're at that point where we're quite comfortable sharing it with other people, because initially, like you said, nobody wanted this conversation. No one wanted to hear it. Everyone wanted to hear that all you had to do was pray and hope and everything was going to be okay. But there's a point where that doesn't cover it and you need to know more. And that's where we step in, where that we need to show you more. Yeah? Sorry, Uchenna, I can see you want to ask a question. Go ahead.
Oh,
You okay? Oh, you're okay.
I'm
It's
listening to
because I
what you're
want you to
saying.
head nodding. So
No,
yes,
I'm
no,
always thinking,
yeah,
yeah, I'm a thinker, I'm a deep thinker. My dad taught me a lot of, not taught me, but living with him and being with him exposed me to some kind of critical thinking
of
and
course,
analysis.
of
Yeah,
course,
I'll say he was a philosopher.
of
Uh,
course.
I
Love
don't
and
believe,
wisdom, isn't it?
I don't, looking back, I don't think he belonged, in the environment where he was. He was a different breed somehow. And even though we weren't discussing it in spiritual terms, but it was really a spiritual um, relationship that I had with him. It's a
Mm.
very deeply spiritual relationship. And yeah, so maybe that's why I learned, like, I don't know, he taught me how to write. So most of the things you see me doing on Facebook are not, I didn't learn it in school.
Good.
He taught me directly how to do it,
I
and I
tell you, it's the
didn't know
best
he
one.
was teaching me how to do it
It's the best
until I
way.
started doing it. And I found out that, wow, this is what he has been teaching me all these years. So I feel I understand what you're saying very, very well about the ancestral, he has passed on to,
Okay.
so he's what we consider an ancestor too.
Of
Um,
course, of course, of course. The thing is, and this
yeah,
is, go ahead.
yeah, and it's a beautiful relationship for me because he still appears, sometimes in my dream, and comes to
Mm.
say some things and goes away.
No,
Which
this is,
I don't reveal to anybody or anything because we had a special kind of relationship,
mm.
So yeah, he comes once in a while, not all the time, he comes once in a while, um, and tells me some things and just moves on. So yeah, I feel what you're saying very well, and
Mm.
how will I put it? I guess the last question
Go ahead.
I want to ask is how what's your take on uh, based on the African spirituality?
Of
Uh,
course.
is there a single God, or are
Oh, good
there
question.
gods? What is God? This is God an energy? Is like who is
Yeah.
God? Okay, I know that's going to take a whole
No, no,
year
no,
to
no, no.
explain, but
I'll
if you
try
could
and
just
simplify it. I'll
break
try and
it down
simplify it
to us,
because
what
the
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 concept is.
the hardest thing. Let me ask you this, and then I'll carry on. What do you define that God has actually done? Because everyone uses this term God. And when you say, what is God responsible for? Is he responsible for creation? Is he responsible for the intelligence and the thoughts that we have in our mind? Is he responsible for um, all the different birds, bees, trees, the fact that the earth is spinning, all of the universe? What is God actually responsible for? Because everyone uses the term but doesn't define what it actually means, as in what he's actually, or she, or whatever is actually done. They get caught up in the whole gender argument. But if you ask the question, what do you perceive that is created? And everyone says everything, then you know that they really haven't thought about it. It's a very simple answer that requires no thought. Because why I say this is, if it's creation, the only way we live is from creating an image to see. And we do that. We're the ones who create. A blind person is not living in the same dimension, is living in the same dimension, but can't see what we see. So they don't create all these different opportunities to have all these different experiences. So, what is it that God creates that you don't create? And this is where you start to realize that the concept of God, there are deeper intelligent beings within you, but they don't operate on this singularity God concept. They know from a long time ago that you are the creator. You're the creator of all the images, feelings, emotions, everything that you've ascribed to God, you actually do in order to live. The only thing you could say is he created the world. If you can't experience the world, and your world is only as large as your experience, if you don't know about what's going on in another country, that's not in your world. So therefore, you wouldn't counter it. But someone in that country doesn't know about what's going on in your part of the world, you're not in their world. So there's no one person working with the idea of the world. They've all got their individual ideas based on what they have created, based on their definitions and belief systems. So the concept of God, what did it create that you don't create? And there you start to realize it's an idea that was given to man to give man a plan of how he should live, to set some rules and regulations. I have a saying that I said, man wrote rules and then called a rule book of how we should all behave, and then called the author God. And then from that point onwards, they could dictate what God said and then write rules for man to follow. But a deeper understanding of what creation is something we cover, but it's way beyond the very simplistic idea of an external idea created everything. Where do you create so much and can do so much? But this is why I said the biggest trick is to get you to be a human, which means God created you, and a being, which means that God didn't create you.
Yeah, human being. And yeah, okay, so I think we can close the discussion for the day
No
there.
problem.
Yeah, you made
Uchenna, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
yeah, thanks for joining in. I'll post your links on
No
the
problem.
whatever, yeah, on the chat. So if anybody needs to connect with you, then they can. Thanks for
No,
showing
they're
up.
welcome.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to reciprocating the gesture.
Yes,
Whenever.
I look so forward to that because in honesty, I'm an avid watcher of your videos. So I've got some questions based on what you say to ask you and see
All
how
right.
you arrived at those things. So my friend, thank you. And
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for those that are listening and watching and everything like that. And yeah, I hope we all hear from everyone soon.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Take care.